Welcome to the Better Outcomes podcast, where we discuss all things leadership, sales, and communication in Australian business. At Better Outcomes Training, we provide world-class training solutions for businesses who want to arm their teams with cutting-edge skills to lead better, sell better, and enjoy more success, purpose, and profit from the work they do. For a full breakdown of all the courses we offer, visit www.better-outcomes.com.au. There's also a link in the description. Now, on to today's podcast. Enjoy.
You know, I have to cut this out now. Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome back to the Better Outcomes Training Podcast. Paul, every week, tests my editing skills by pressing the record button and then giggling and laughing at me. I hope it's split screen because they'll be able to see what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe. We'll find out.
Paulie, how's your week been, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. It's been more meetings than it has been workshops, but we had a great workshop yesterday. Big group of people, so 24 people in the room. Really with different desires with regards to being able to think fast and speak clearly. Some people who want to be able to present and be able to sort of not be like a deer in the headlights type situation when they're presenting. Yeah. But then also some very different experiences and contexts that people were after, which was, being asked a question by somebody who maybe, you look up to, you sort of, there's a bit of awe inspiring around them and not being a deer in the headlights, like you don't know what you're saying. So it was awesome though, man. I tell you, we had open people who were very, very open to learning. Sometimes you can walk into a room and you can just feel there's good energy in the room. We certainly had that experience, which was phenomenal. And I think some great clients some great associates, maybe friends in the future as well. So yeah, very good. That and then just a fair number of meetings as well. But how about yourself, Cuz? What's been going on?
Wait, you were presenting to a group of people that were like in three different stages of the same process. That's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, they were after the same kind of outcome, which was being able to think about, being able to not get that fight or flight mentality. So being able to sort of be put on the spot regardless of what is, something unexpected happens, and you have to be able to, think clearly, say and do the right thing, and get the right outcome when under pressure. The interesting thing was, though, again, as I said, there was different scenarios. People go around the rooms and ask what people want to take away. And the thing was, it was like, some people say, I do a lot of presenting, so I want to be able to deal with questions when they come in. And then some people are saying, I want to be able to give all the relevant questions or answer all the questions when my CEO asks a question. And then there were some people who were just a happy medium, wanted to be able to deal with maybe more aggressive, or maybe we'll call them assertive type people as well. So it was quite interesting because, again, the outcome is all the same, that they want to be able to think clearly, say and do the right thing, get the right outcomes, but the context very often different. So obviously presenting to an audience, there's going to be slightly different nuance there to having a one-to-one with your CEO, or being part of the boardroom conversation, that type of thing. So it was a little bit of different things people want to take away. But one of the things I really always try to do is try to facilitate each person as an individual, rather than just take a one-size-fits-all death by PowerPoint type of presentation. So that was where we found ourselves, and was able to bring in from a lot of other workshops into that, which was great.
Beautiful stuff, mate. Beautiful stuff. Boring week for me. Well, not boring, just busy. Same old same, really. Driving big trucks, oversized loads, and chasing the hook on cranes, cooking food on the Franna engine because I forgot to warm my food up. Just the normal stuff that I get through.
Fantastic.
And a few revealing conversations, learning a lot of new stuff at the moment, learning a lot of new, learning how many options I've got and opportunities that are out there, as well as all the other base learning I'm doing. My mind's very curious at the moment, Paulie. It's back to curious again about a few cool topics at the moment. Bit of human behavior and psychology. It's fascinating.
Is this tying into to looking at other potential opportunities in different parts of life? And the reason I asked that question is because it's quite interesting what happens when you put your head above the parapet. I think a lot of the time we're we're concerned about doing things differently. But when we look at other opportunities, we kind of very often think, well, why the hell didn't I do that previously?
Yeah, it's a couple of conversations that I've had that have opened my eyes up to stuff that's out there that I never considered before. Never considered stuff within my own industry. I've been in the industry for 30 odd years, and I've just had the light shined on certain parts of it, and my eyes open to it. So it's really when you kind of get something like that sprung on you, it's quite intriguing. Well, it is to me anyway. I want to go and find out what it's all about. Like, what am I missing out on here?
Yeah.
What friends haven't I met yet? You know, what opportunities haven't I explored? And it's been a good week. It's been a good week. More to come on that one, I think. A little bit more to come on that one. A little bit cooking.
Fantastic.
Good background.
Stuff. Beautiful.
So we've got a little bit to get through today.
Yes.
I want to start off with something that you mentioned in a combo that we had a bit earlier.
Yeah.
About the COVID hangover that you've come across. One of the problems, one of the ongoing problems, shall we say, with the after effects of COVID. You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just for anybody listening here, cousin, as we mentioned, I know last week, the framework is going to change up a little bit. So what we'll do every week is just sort of update people on certain things that we're seeing in the marketplace, certain changes, certain challenges, certain lessons, learnings, sort of words of wisdom from a lot of the workshops and meetings and stuff like that. But one of the things that I've had a few different meetings on is something I refer to as the COVID hangover. And this is particularly impacting sales teams. And I'll tell you what's happening. During COVID, of course, there was a lot of things that happened during COVID that we didn't foresee. You know, we didn't foresee COVID to the best of our knowledge anyway. The impacts on other areas was quite profound. But what happened with a lot of sales areas, and I've seen this now in construction, I've seen this now in electronic hi-fi equipment, electronic equipment as well, and then now actually seeing this in the motor industry as well, is something I've termed the COVID hangover, which was during COVID, because obviously big issues with imports and exports, salespeople were having a lot of buyers coming directly to them. So because there was a big issue with supply, because there wasn't enough supply that we were getting through, and there was a big demand. You think about like construction was a lot of people were extending their houses, and there was you had a waiting list of cars and stuff like that. So the reality of that was that buyers were thinking, supply versus demand. It's like I want to go and get a new car. I've got an extension of my house now. I want to go buy a new hi-fi system. So buyers were hunting down sounds the wrong term, but actually tracking or approaching sellers and wanting to buy, which is, as a seller, absolutely phenomenal. It's a great place to be.
Yeah.
When people just they're lining up to buy from you, and it's almost like it's like a perfect situation. You're sitting there just taking orders,
Yeah.
But now, of course, what's happened is with all of that now changing, with that whole situation changing, and obviously we live in a dynamic environment, is I've had a few sales directors who are talking to me saying, listen, our salespeople, they're not used to this. It's almost like they've lost the hunger to go out and sell, because normally the orders are coming to them. So it's almost like upskilling people again to be hungry, which is one of the first things. But instead of just taking the order because you've got a buyer who's ready to go with finance and everything like that, it's like, how do you actually go out and build that value? And it was it's very, very eye-opening that if things have been really good and I've got a lot of results coming in, then why do I need to go out and prospect? I don't, if I have prospects coming in.
Yeah.
Why do I need to go out and build value when the client just wants the order straight away? And it's very, very, very interesting that it's almost like a lion that's forgotten to hunt to some degree, and it's really being able to change that way of thinking. So firstly, create that hunter mentality again, but then also giving people the skill sets and the confidence to utilize it. Because I'll tell you this, because it's fascinating, and I've experienced this with myself as well. It's fascinating. The environment that you find yourself in keeps you sharp. And if you're not in that environment anymore, the blade or the skill sets become dull. And what I mean by that is if I've had 2 years of not having to go out and prospect, my prospecting skills are going to be very, very dull. And here's the other thing, and I see this with people who leave industries for a while and when they come back to the industry, very often they can be lacking confidence, which is a big one. If I haven't had to go out and prospect, if I haven't had to go out and cold call, there could be a delay in my confidence there as well. And I'm convinced that the environments we see ourselves in either keep those skill sets sharp, or if we're not in that environment, then they soften the blade. It becomes very, very dull there. So that's been quite an interesting aspect with regards to a COVID hangover. So it was nice when we're getting all the inquiries coming in, but now we've got to get out and develop those skills, develop that confidence, get that back, get the whole culture of the sales team back as well, which is a huge thing. Because if you can't shift that culture back to the hunter mentality, then it can be a real tough time. It can be a real tough situation. That, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know we did this place during COVID.
Yeah.
And we were so lucky because we were just ahead of the curve of everything. And being in the construction industry, I mean, the biggest shop in the world closed. China closed, and people were shocked about how dependent we were on getting all our materials out of one place. Everything from glass to porcelain to fittings to flooring, the lot. And when we couldn't get stuff in, even if it was just sitting in the bay, you know, and on a ship, you couldn't get it unloaded.
Yeah.
Not surprised the automotive industry are being hit now too. That makes sense because cars were the same. Couldn't get new cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Good friend of ours was trying to get his car. He wasn't too happy because he had a tracking number that was sitting in Port Phillip Bay. He was right stroppy, the poor old fella.
He just needed a new reason to be stroppy, mate. Yeah.
Just give another reason. But especially with the building materials here, we were very, very lucky. We were probably 6 to 8 months ahead of the curve on all our materials, and there was people that we knew who were just behind us who got absolutely slammed. Absolutely
really?
Couldn't get materials for their house. Get a frame up, couldn't get roof, couldn't get walls, couldn't get, insulation, windows, whatever it was, couldn't get glass.
Yeah.
So, and the project just sat there, and they were willing to pay, go anywhere. They were searching Australia to find anything and pay anything just to get their house done, which is what you do in a time of crisis. So, and it makes perfect sense. I wrote down here as you were talking about, if you're not using a certain skill set, you get rusty.
Yeah,
regardless of what skill set it is. And then especially with something like sales where you're prospecting, you've got to get used to getting the door slammed in your face, getting used to being told no. If you are rusty on that, your confidence is going to be through the floor. So
absolutely.
Yeah, trying to
and now think about a whole team that's been impacted by that. One person is challenging enough. Yeah. But think about a whole team. It's like we need to really get people back onto that, spinning that flywheel of prospecting and going out and actually being able to, remind themselves how we build value, remind ourselves how we differentiate ourselves from our competition. It's mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And I'll tell you this as well, an electronics company I was talking to, they were one of the people I had a conversation with, and they're charging maybe 20% more, a premium brand, they're charging maybe 20% more than a lot of the cheaper alternatives, which are, coming into the market now. And the fascinating thing was they were saying to me that they are just, the salespeople are just dropping price. They're not holding, they're not defending their position on price. And I said to the director, I said, well, why should I, as a retailer, pay more money for your product versus somebody else? And he couldn't give me the answer, which was a concern, which is a real concern. So it's a confidence aspect, I think, very often, if people are not used to it. But also, we have to think about it not just from a psychological point of view, but also from a strategic point of view. So if I'm working with a team like that, I need to give them unique selling points. I need to say, listen, this is our USP versus our competitors. If we can do that, we can start building more value. Then the retailer's going to understand they're going to pay a little bit more for us, and as long as we can justify it. But I asked that question point blank, and I couldn't believe it. He couldn't give me an answer, which was a concern, a real concern. So we got a further conversation. I think I'll be able to help him, but we got a further conversation down the line on this one, which will be interesting.
You've told me in the past that you've worked with a lot of high-performing sales teams, and I've been in environments around high-performing people, and they tend to motivate you. That you tend to be you kind of rise together, like at jiu-jitsu, where you see other people doing stuff, and you kind of want to be a part of it as well. And if you're in that good environment, they'll teach you how to do these things, and you all grow together.
Absolutely.
Is there a reverse of that, where
Yeah.
if the kind of for lack of a better word, if the rot sets in,
Yeah.
and that the confidence levels switch, can that drag everything down as well? Like you were talking about
Massively.
that team, yeah.
That's why
A
strong
big
leadership
turnaround.
is
Yeah,
so important in selling, because effectively salespeople, which I am one. Okay, I love salespeople massively, and that when that passion is good, that culture is good. They get into that positive upward spiral because they inspire each other, support each other. There's often rivalry and competition and stuff like that, but the reverse is true too. And I think psychology very often, or what we might call vibe, maybe the vibe of the place, it's contagious.
yeah,
And as with any culture and any work environment, but if you're going into a real tough market and people are not prepared for it, they don't know how to deal with it, that negative energy, because again, with salespeople can be full of great energy when things are great, but my goodness, and having experienced this myself as well, and something I had to protect against, which is those lows can get low as well, because with selling, of course, it's the highs, it's the ups and the downs, it's not sort of static. So the highs can be really high, the lows can be challenging as well, but being able to manage those lows and making sure that it doesn't spread out to the rest of the team can be a real challenge. Absolutely, yeah, it really can.
yeah,
It's a big issue, and you've got to put the brakes on it pretty quickly. Otherwise, you can have a whole demotivated sales team, and
yeah,
that is big ramifications there. Absolutely,
yeah. Especially if you've got a small, close knit team, then
yeah.
it can spread quite quickly, I would suggest.
Yeah, and negativity tends to spread quicker than positivity. I know I shouldn't be saying this because it's not sort of warm and fluffy and engaging, but the reality of it is like, what I say, misery loves company. So we have to make sure we keep focus on good, positive things, and not just hypothetical, but actually real reasons why people are going to be more positive moving forward, and how we can get people to that positive upward spiral as well, which is great.
So the effects of this code is going to keep us going for a little while, mate.
It'll be
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. I mean, the whole marketplace is always changing. That's why keep our fingers on the pulse. With
Yeah.
doing so much training, we get to see these trends a little bit ahead of time, if I can say that, because training so many different sectors, you get to see trends as they come through, which is a lot quicker than a lot of sort of revisionist type of approaches after the event when we can see
Yeah.
it. But COVID was a big thing. I know I'm telling people that, but it had big impacts for a lot of reasons, and certainly we're seeing it, and it's come up in a few conversations. So I'm certainly aware of it.
All right. Next up, you got a bit of feedback this week, mate.
Right, listen, feedback is one thing, but it was there was a workshop I ran a few weeks ago. What am I talking about? A few months ago, and there was some feedback I got from one of the attendees, and I got the feedback via a phone call and a conversation with one of my colleagues. And she goes to me, the comment here, Paul, is that you sound like a meme machine, a LinkedIn meme machine. I said meme machine, and I'm thinking it's like, I don't look like a meme machine right now. I've been off training for a few months, so I'm certainly not looking like a lean, mean machine. But what he said was, I said a mean machine. It's like, well, I couldn't get my head around it. And then she goes, no, meme machine, a LinkedIn meme machine. And it turned out that what he meant on it, which I was in hysterics when I heard this, I thought was absolutely brilliant. He goes that a lot of the things that Paul says are things that like alliteration, or they rhyme, or that it's something you might see as a meme. Okay. And I was confused firstly when I heard it, but then what he said made absolutely perfect sense, because a lot of the stuff I say, I will use alliteration. So I'll, use getting people to be compliant rather than, committed rather than compliant. Or I'll use terminology that will rhyme, like information exchange versus behavioral change. And the reason I do that, there's a strategic, which is exactly like what you'll see on memes. And the reason I think that memes become shareable or likable or what they call sticky is because they stick in your mind. And I think that the same thing comes true with training, which is effectively, if you can say things that remain in people's minds, then they're going to remember them after the training. That stuff's going to come back to them. And there's different ways of doing it. So there's alliteration we've mentioned. There could be rhyming. There can be the way you say something has a beat. There can be hand gestures you sometimes use to remind people of it. And I was in hysterics when I figured out what he'd said. But he's quite right, because a lot of the stuff, obviously, I'm sharing there, I wanted to stick with people. I wanted to resonate with people. I wanted to become part of their common language, because I do believe a lot of the stuff is, I nearly went common language to common practice. But common sense to common practice, sorry. But effectively, it's true. I talk a lot like that in terms of being able to give stuff that people hold on to, because then they'll not be able to unsee it after the training, And so I took that as a massive compliment. I don't know if it was meant as a compliment or not, but he said this guy is just like a LinkedIn meme machine. And as I said, firstly, it was a huge amount of confusion. Secondly, it was like, that makes sense. And the reason I do it is because that sticks with people, it resonates with people, and that's something they'll remember after the training as well, which I was quite happy with after the confusion to start with.
After the confusion, I think the reason it works so well is that the way you teach, the way you train people is you're able to give them scenarios where they can put it back into their own context. That's what we talked about last week.
Yes.
About how you get them to refer to stuff as you're teaching them. They're thinking about a situation they've been in or something they're dealing with. And then when you put your little spin on things like active listening, common sense, not common practice, it sticks with them, so that when they get into that situation again or with that person again, it pops up, because it's easy to remember. It's catchy. It sticks.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's so effective as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who use stuff like this. There's actually a guy called Quick. That's his surname. He wrote a book on I think on memory, but he's got a little bit of a story about how he fell off a chair as a child and hurt his brain or hurt his head. But now what he does is, because he couldn't remember anything or what have you, it's become a sort of a superpower. And you listen to this guy speak, and effectively everything everything is alliteration, rhyming. It's got a beat to it, what have you, but that stuff sticks,
Yeah, I read that book. I can't remember. What's that?
Can't remember what it is. It's a memory book, yeah?
Yes, it's a memory book.
The deep irony. The deep irony.
Yeah, because how come I can remember that I've forgotten something, but I can't remember what... Anyway, getting old. That's probably why I'm reading memory books at the moment.
There you go.
So, meme machine. Our memes on LinkedIn are generated by a random person.
You generating those, mate, so it's all good. Fantastic.
Yeah, randomly. No, very good, very good. What's next, buddy? What are we talking about next?
The final thing I got to share is something I've had a conversation with again. I know we're talking a lot about sales this week, but with the sales director, which was fascinating. Now, this sales director, he was after some training for about 100 people, and he was after a fair few things. He was saying things like, they're not a premium, they're a premium product, so they need to be able to build more value. They're a bigger investment than a lot of their competitors. He wanted to be able to get his sales teams to be able to present well, which is not uncommon. So presenting to a panel of multiple decision makers, which is great. And what we were talking about was, I was talking about some of the challenges, because I wanted to get to an idea of what some of the issues were that he was facing. And particularly with something like building value, I know we've spoken a lot about, but he wanted to do some presenting, getting people to present. And I was talking a lot about the psychological factors and psychological state that is the best psychological state to have people presenting in. And he made a comment to me, which I found quite interesting. And he said that he didn't believe in a lot of the mindset stuff, which was quite interesting to me. It really was quite interesting to me, because something that I believe is all of the strategies that are taught in selling, all of the things like rapport building value, influence and persuasion, handling objections, negotiations, all of these can be structured skill sets that can be processly trained. They absolutely can.
Yeah.
But effectively, if the person's not in the right frame of mind to utilize them, it's all for nothing. Matter of fact, a gentleman you referenced earlier on, Chase Hughes, was talking about this. Now, for those of you who know across Chase Hughes, he's been named by some people as the #1 behavioral specialist in the US at the moment. He's got some great work. We're both across some of his work at the moment. And he said he was talking about salespeople with scripts. And he was saying there's a lot of people who are absolutely fascinated with scripts, and you just have to have the perfect words to say it's going to unlock everybody. And he goes, I could give you the most perfect script in the world, write it all out, things like double binds, auto-suggestion, neurolinguistic programming, all of the stuff. But I can then give that script to somebody who's got severe social anxiety, and then effectively it's going to be no good because they're crippling social anxiety. You ask somebody to go out and use that script, they're not going to do it face-to-face because where they're at, the mindset they're in when they're in that state of overwhelm, it's not going to work, which is an interesting thing. It's very, very interesting. I believe it's interesting. But here's the other thing, is a lot of the time people see symptoms that they want to fix. They see symptoms, they see things that they want to be able to do, like with selling, they want to be able to handle objections better. They want to be able to close more. They want to be able to build that rapport, build that value, all of this stuff. But what they're focusing on is external factors, which is very often the surface level stuff. It's like people want 3 words to say to everybody that's going to close everybody. And over many, many, many years of training people, my take on this is, and as a matter of fact, we're going to train this on a webinar next week, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But effectively is, if people are not in the frame of mind, the right frame of mind, the words matter very, very little. The approach matters very, very little. The reverse of this is true as well. And I actually said this to him about presenting. He said to me that a lot of his salespeople, they just shut down when it comes to presenting. They just get the information out. They don't present well at all. And I said to him, I'm willing to bet that your salespeople know their content well enough. They know their content. They know their product knowledge, all of that. If you had them in a relaxed state where they're sitting having a chat with their friend, having something to drink, and they're nicely relaxed, they could get all of that presentation material out of their mouth in a succinct manner. Would you agree with me? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay. So effectively, they know the right thing to say. They know the right approaches, but it's staying in that right frame of mind.
Yeah.
And we had a deeper conversation from that, which I said to him, listen, I can give you all of the surface level techniques to utilize, no problems at all. I can give you clever closing techniques. I can give you clever techniques for dealing with objections. But if we lose our salespeople to mental and emotional overwhelm, if their psychology is not in the right place, all of those other words are for nothing. If they're selling to somebody who they're massively intimidated by, great example of this is somebody who's got a lot of inherent authority, like a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
When I'm training people who sell to doctors, sell to lawyers, or sell to C-suites, very often that natural authority or that perceived authority that person has intimidates the person who's selling, and this doesn't lead to good things. So it was a fascinating observation, fascinating conversation as to dealing with something that I think is a massive misconception. And I think that a lot of the time, if salespeople are underperforming, the sales leadership or even the salespeople themselves try to deal with the symptom, like they're not delivering, they're not defending price when it comes to being pushed by somebody in procurement. But if they don't work on the psychological factors to keep people in the right place, they're going to be overwhelmed all the time. They're not going to get those better outcomes. So effectively, at the end of the conversation, I was very, very happy that we'd had that conversation because it's really the crux of the matter. And I know some of the team that he's got some great people there. But really being able to keep them in that confident, positive, empowered mental and emotional state so they don't go to fight or flight, they don't feel the overwhelm, their prefrontal cortex doesn't reduce in size, and they're able to have that creative thought process the whole time. And here's the other thing then, because then they can start really being able to sell well, present well, and they can start influeing and persuading at a much higher level. Because with that scenario of presenting, if you're presenting to a multi-panel level of decision makers, so you've got 4 or 5 different departments who've got to sign off on the presentation you're giving, you can very often, if you're okay and comfortable in the presentation, you can start becoming immensely present with that target audience. And then you can start picking up, if you don't know already, who are the actual decision makers in that room. Because very often, and again, depending on how well you know the audience, if you can be okay in yourself, then your focus goes away from any internal insecurities and starts focusing on your target audience. And this is where you can start picking up who the real decision makers are. Because very often, if I've got a panel of 5 people there, I might have 4 people who can say no to me, or I might have 5 people there that can say no to me, but only 1 person who can say yes to me. And the interesting factor is that if I'm fully present with people, I can see where those little looks of confirmation are, or those little physiological reactions are coming from. It's like, who is looking to who for confirmation? And sometimes it's just a sideward glance, sometimes it's just a step back, sometimes just an observation. And it's not always the loudest in the room, which is quite interesting. If you already know who the ultimate decision maker is and everybody else is just there to approve, that's cool. But very often, again, training clients to be in the most challenging situations, I'm looking for those little physiological reactions to get an idea of really who's the decision maker in this. Again, that comes back to keeping people in that right frame, that right mental frame.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Especially, there's another little thing on that as well. Not only looking for who the decision makers are, but if you're nice and relaxed, you'll be able to understand why certain benefits of what you're selling, certain features of what you're selling are important to different departments. You know what I mean? So you'll be able to relax in that. But on a more basic level, if you're not confident, if you're in a bad state of mind, or you're not quite where you should be, it affects body language. It affects 100%. Tone of the words you use. Forget the words you're using. If you've got the wrong tone, and your body language isn't there, you're just there to talk about what you're talking about, forget it.
100%.
That's a massive part of presenting. Even tone. If you're on a phone script, if you're not upbeat and bubbly, you can pick up on that. You can pick up straight away if one of your friends rings you up and he's not in a good state of mind.
100%.
You can tell straight away. So why wouldn't a client if you're talking? So, I believe it's very important, staying positive, mindset up.
Absolutely. How about we take that a step further, cuz you're absolutely right with regards to, if you're not feeling confident in that moment, senior level decision makers, heads of procurement, opinionated people, disagreeable people will pick up that you're not aligned with what you're saying, and you're going to have a tough time closing. Because very often, if you're asking them, if you're trying to sell to them and they've already got an incumbent, there's some degree of perceived risk, and they can very often borrow into your risk. But we can go even deeper on this. Imagine being in a sales role where you underestimate the value you bring to the table, where you don't actually see, and I've been in the situation, there's a lot of salespeople who are in the situation, you don't truly see the value. And when I say that logically, and you'll nod your head, you say, yeah, I know it. I know what it is. But when you genuinely see the value that you bring, then it's a completely different conversation to pick up that phone and cold call than if you're just smiling and dialing. And it's just, you're taking that concept of it's a numbers game, which is, I'm selling insurance. I know that people have to buy insurance one day of the year. I'm going to call 365 people today because it's a numbers game, and I might get one person. And that's a tough situation. But when you've got something that can solve a problem for somebody, you're calling them up, you're fully aligned with it, you're not going to have that internal conflict. Because if you have to pick up that phone every single time, and that you're not aligned with what you're saying, and it's literally just a numbers game, that can destroy you. That can massively have a massive internal conflict.
Exactly.
But the reverse of that is true. Is if you genuinely see how you have a solution to a problem that's keeping people up at night, then it's the equivalent of picking up the phone to somebody that you care about, who is having a problem that you got a solution to. And that phone is not as heavy then. I tell you, it's not as heavy then. And
I agree. Yeah, I think mindset's huge.
Yeah,
I really do. So, that's why I think that's the basis for everything. Good mindset, stay in a good positive frame of mind. You're relaxed. You're not in fight or flight.
Yeah.
Think clearly. You're not. Your brain's not flooded with chemicals, getting your heart rate up and getting you ready to run. Closing down the creative part of your brain. So, it's huge for me.
Absolutely. Huge. The problem is there's a lot of people in our positions, particularly from a training point of view, who will just say things like, just be in the right frame of mind. And that is true but useless. So people, I don't think, inherently know how to be in the right frame of mind. They're not always aware of when they are. So one of the things, particularly from that confidence aspect, is how do we actually do that? How do we make sure that we can intentionally develop the right frame of mind? And that is a very, very big area of focus, because knowing what to do is one thing. Knowing how to do it is another. We all know we should be in the right frame of mind. That's the what to do. But the how to do it, that is where we put a lot of focus on, to make sure that we can actually give people tools to keep them in more positive frames of mind, rather than just saying be in a positive frame of mind, because that means nothing. It really doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. You can say that you're in a positive frame of mind, but you're not.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, good stuff there, Paulie. Very good stuff. Now, we have a lunch and learn coming up.
We certainly
Tell us about that one. That's on next Monday? Monday.
It is. Monday the 19th.
Yes.
Yep. Monday the 19th. So that's coming on. Actually, that ties in very, very closely to what I've just said. So what we're running is how we train self-motivated, high-performance sales teams, okay? Because we've had some incredible results recently. I mean, literally over the last few months, or a few weeks even, we've had people who've come back with just straight after the training, hitting six-figure deals that they use these techniques that we've taught them to be able to convert the business, which is phenomenal. And a lot of recommendation work that's coming in as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with people exactly what we do with regards to keep people in the right frame of mind. And I'll have a little bit of a explainer earlier on with regards to the impact of things like strategies, techniques, and understandings, and then actually how we cultivate that right mindset. So that is what we're going to be focusing on. There's going to be 4 different techniques that I'm going to share with the audience that I can nearly guarantee they are not doing at the moment, okay, unless they've worked with me recently, particularly, okay? But 4 different techniques to make sure that I can keep salespeople in the right frame of mind, because the other stuff is easy. The strategies, techniques, and understandings, the closing techniques, the removing objections, the getting an earned advantage over the competitors, those are all easy, teachable things. But mindset is not. So it's how do we actually cultivate that right mindset, so that then from there, people can utilize those strategies, techniques, and understandings, and they don't snap back to the old behavior. And then hopefully, obviously, the sales teams go on to achieve a return on their investment, which is very important.
Very important indeed. How do people sign up? They just go to LinkedIn and look for the Lean Mean Mean Machine. Is that what you're calling it?
There is a link on my wall. I'll be updating it again a couple of times. Otherwise, people can just get hold of you and me if they haven't registered already. But I will be putting that out on the social media. So on LinkedIn, it'll be on my wall.
I think it's on the Better Outcomes page as well. I'm not sure. If it's not, it will be very shortly.
It will be shortly, yeah. So that'll be on there, and people can register there. But it's going to be 45 minutes. It'll be 45 minutes, content, stack. And then I'll have 15 minutes for a Q&A. So it will literally, I appreciate anybody's time who's on there. So we'll make sure that 45 minutes is, really jam-packed with great content, not me talking about my holiday or anything like that. And then what we'll do is we'll put open 15 minutes for Q&A. Also, here's the other thing, folks, for any of you who are registered, if you're not able to make the actual time, because I know obviously we're talking to a lot of busy people here, is anybody who registers for the webinar, you'll get a copy of the recording if you're not able to attend as well. And even if you do attend, you'll get a copy for yourselves as well. So we can make that commitment.
Looking forward to that one. Really looking forward to that. Paulie, another big week, probably another big week coming up. Thank you for your time today.
Beautiful.
Insights. And as always, very much appreciated.
Beautiful.
Thanks for your time. Everyone, thank you for listening. We'll catch you again next week.
Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Goodbye, everybody.